Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Film, this online section out of Southfield campus. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ms. Kendall. I'm the Humanities Department Chair and the full-time film instructor at the Royal Oak and Southfield campus. Please log on to Desire to Learn by going to OCC's homepage and selecting the tab marked Distance Learning. Students will upload assignments, take tests, and participate on discussion boards. If you need one-on-one individual help with Desire to Learn, please visit the ASC at your home campus. All of the films screened in class are available to watch in the Southfield Library, and many are on Netflix.com. A copy of the textbook is also on reserve in the Royal Oak and Southfield libraries, and portions of the book can be found on Desire to Learn under the tab marked PDF. I try my hardest to make sure students have access to all of the materials they need to be successful in the class. I like to begin each semester by discussing my expectations. They're pretty simple. Do your weekly readings, complete and submit your assignments on time. This is vitally important in an online class. Take responsibility for your choices, and the most important expectation that I have of my students is to be open and enjoy learning. Let's make this class a pleasurable experience for everyone. Let's continue to think about expectations in relation to film. What makes a film good, or what makes a film bad? It's largely subjective, so expectations about what a film is or should be come from our experiences with film, and they're largely subjective. We're going to view film objectively in this class, so it's almost as if we have to retrain ourselves to take our personal likes and dislikes out of the equation and really evaluate a film critically for what's presented. Imagine you tell someone you're taking an online film class and they ask you this question: what is film? Now I know it's a stretch, but we're going to use our imagination. This is a humanities class, so let's have some fun with it. How would you answer this simple question? What is film? Have you ever stopped to think about it? So let's continue. Let's pretend to being a Martian, an extraterrestrial, just landed on Earth and has no idea what the word film means. I know it's a stretch, but let's have some fun. Since film is such a large part of our lives, how would we explain it objectively? This exercise can help us take our opinions out of the equation. Here are a few ways to describe film. It's a noun, right? Film is a thing. We need something to capture and store these images, these photographs. So film is a capture device. Even if it's digital, we need something to store these images so that they can be viewed repeatedly. It's really important that we let the Martian man know film is a photographic means of communication. So film is not only a noun, a thing, it's also a verb, it's an act. We have to actively go out and capture these images. So the act of filming something is to be engaged in actively shooting and recording these live images. It's a work of art. Film is an artistic medium. Perhaps we forget because we think it's an escape or base a film's importance on how much money it makes at the box office. As we begin to view film objectively and learn film grammar, the images will take on a deeper meaning. Any film director you speak to will tell you film is a work of art. It's a labor of love. It's something that artists do to express themselves, whether concrete or abstractly. Film is also an industry, especially in the United States. Film, media, it's one of America's largest exports. We would certainly be remiss not to mention this to the extraterrestrial. All of a sudden, this simple four-letter word, F-I-L-M, is starting to become pretty complex. Film is a historical and cultural document. Film has the ability to preserve time. We'll watch some of the first films ever made in class, and it's the closest thing we have to actually traveling back in time. It's okay to laugh at how styles of dress and language change, but if you stop and think, what are we really responding to? Film can be a time capsule. It allows the viewer to look into the past with amazing clarity and insight. What's captured in a film is a representation of culture and society. What do you think films will look like 100 years from now? A form of entertainment. This is often the first thing that students think of or say when I ask the question, what is film? And even though we'll evaluate film objectively in this class, our relationship with film from a really early age revolves around the idea of being entertained or at least engaged. I hope that happens in Introduction to Film as well. A method of storytelling. Mainstream films usually tell a story. We do have an expectation that a film will present us with a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, not necessarily in that order. But a film doesn't have to tell a story. So today I'm going to show examples of abstract avant-garde films that actually don't present us with a story. A text to be analyzed. It's vitally important for us to view film in this way in Introduction to Film. So we're going to read films, not watch films. A film can be read, examined closely, and returned to over and over again. In this class, we'll move away from our opinions, initial reactions to film, and we're going to move towards analyzing a film for a particular element. Being able to view film critically will enhance our understanding of film. Really good job. Hopefully your expectations in relation to film have broadened a little bit through the exercise. Now let's tackle this really important concept, and that's aesthetic awareness. What does it mean to be aesthetically aware in relation to film? My job is to help this happen throughout the course of the semester. Oftentimes students will say being aesthetically aware has to do with understanding how a film is put together. And I like that, but I want to expand on that a little bit. The following composition is a still from a movie. It's beautiful, right? And so we look at it and we get some type of a feeling or an emotional response. That's our initial reaction. Being aesthetically aware is not only looking at a composition and knowing it's beautiful, it's understanding where the beauty lies, how the film is put together or how the frame is put together. So later in the semester, you'll be able to look at this pretty picture and comment on the shallow depth of field, the use of color, the costumes of the girl, their body language, how they're leaning into one another. There's a lot of information contained within this simple frame. If we are able to view film aesthetically, it gives it a deeper meaning. We're able to connect with the material on a much deeper level than if we're just looking at its beauty on the surface. What does this picture make you feel? It's certainly not beautiful, but it's interesting. Some might say weird if we're thinking about it outside of the world of film, but within the world of film, if we're looking at the actual aesthetics of this frame of film, we could look at the lighting. We can look at the characters and how they're arranged in depth in the midground, foreground, and background. We have a deep depth of field. We can look at the set design, the costumes, the signage. We have a lot of information here. So we're able to make not only educated guesses, quote unquote, we're able to deduce things. And that's really the process that we're engaged in when we're watching a film. We're trying to make sense of all the information that's presented to us. Being aesthetically aware gives us that roadmap. It puts us in the driver's seat. We're not only able to arrive at our destination, we understand how and why we got there in the first place. So the final piece of the puzzle of answering this question, what is film, and not only acknowledging but hopefully expanding our expectations, are to watch some avant-garde films. I like to show avant-garde films from the very beginning because it really helps us understand that we can limit ourselves if our expectations are solely based on opinion or our personal relationship with film. If you've never heard the word avant-garde before used in relation to film, that's okay. It's a French word that means advance-garde or vanguard. It can refer to works of art, in this instance film, that are ahead of their time or even quote-unquote trailblazing. Because avant-garde films aren't usually shown at multiplexes or the mall, largely students are unfamiliar with them. I want to show examples of avant-garde films because my hope is that they will help to expand our expectations about what a film is or should be. So hopefully I've piqued your curiosity in relation to avant-garde films. They run counter to mass media and mainstream culture, so sometimes they're hard to get your hands on. YouTube is actually a really good source for avant-garde films. They push the boundaries of film language, so they tend to be very creative. And they encourage multiple interpretations, meaning I show the same avant garde films over and over again to students, and I get wildly different responses. Some students react really positively, and others really negatively. And that's okay because they really encourage a strong response, one way or the other. Still unsure about what I mean by avant-garde? Let's take a look at some examples of avant-garde works in different artistic mediums, beginning with fashion. These aren't just shoes, these are avant-garde shoes. Inside the world of fashion, I can see these shoes being extremely inspirational to other designers. Perhaps a modified version of these shoes will walk their way into my classroom sometime soon. I look forward to it. Our next example is a wedding dress. Even though this wedding dress may not be coming to a church near you, soon a modified version might. Another term for avant-garde is experimental. These works are outside of the box, but they often have a really strong influence on the mainstream. I could see a modified version of this dress without the antlers and the really long train, serving as a beautiful wedding dress. Couldn't you? It's important to understand the criteria for evaluating avant-garde works of art. This abstract painting shouldn't be judged the same way one would judge a realistic representation. Avant-garde works are open to interpretation. What do you see here? Let your imagination run wild. And finally, this work of art is at the DIA. I was really struck by the scale and the shape of it. It's really quite impressive. It's a representation of a figure and a snake. Why not take a trip to the DIA and view avant-garde works of art yourself? It's free for citizens of Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb counties. And if you haven't been there lately, what are you waiting for? The following slides have hyperlinks to the YouTube channel for the class. If you have trouble accessing them, you can copy and paste a link into your browser, or there's a link to the YouTube channel on the top left-hand corner of the page on Desire to Learn. All of these films come from the Avant-Garde playlist. You must have an internet connection to view the videos on the YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy these avant-garde films. Remember, I'm showing them to help expand your expectations about what a film is and should be. Our first film is Night Music by Stan Brakhage. It's a purely avant-garde experimentation with film. Our second film, Yours Truly, uses classic Hollywood film footage mixed with animation to tell a really unique story. The last film, La Jetée, I show for a couple of reasons. It's a really strong example of how films made outside of the mainstream can influence the mainstream. It actually influenced the film 12 Monkeys. It's definitely ahead of its time because it's made of still photography, and it has this almost timeless appeal. So I hope you enjoy. I end the lecture with the question I posed in the beginning. What is film? I hope that after this journey you've taken with me, you answer the question differently. Your expectations should be broader. You understand now that a film doesn't necessarily have to tell a story, have characters, or even present something that quote unquote makes sense. Film can be a purely creative means of expressing oneself. I want to thank you for taking this journey with me, and I'll see you next time.